In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about a tool that you can use in Photoshop that will make animating a little bit easier. So Photoshop itself is already very powerful, but in addition to that, Adobe has allowed other people, third parties, individuals, etc., to make additional tools that allow you to make Photoshop even more powerful. You can do some cool stuff with animating in Photoshop already, but Photoshop itself wasn't really designed for that, so it's missing some different tools that would make it more efficient, or I guess sort of like shortcuts, if you will. So a pretty well-known and popular one is called AnimDessin2. It's the sequel to the original AnimDessin, and let's talk about how to find that and how to install it and a little bit about what it does. So if you just go to Google and you type AnimDessin2, you should be able to find it pretty easy. What we're looking for is this GitHub link here. So if you don't see that GitHub link, you can directly type in the URL, but if Google is going to bring it up for you, then that's quite a bit faster. So once we're here, if you're not familiar with GitHub, these are essentially the different files and pages and whatnot of this page, right? So GitHub is sort of like an open folder setup type thing where people can upload things, and it makes it very easy to download things. A lot of independent developers and programmers and stuff like to use this. So there's actually two tools here, but we're going to just talk about this one right now. What we need to do is we're going to need this installation file, and we're also going to need this version of AnimDessin2 right here. We are using CC, so CC is the one that we need. So I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to tell it that I want to download this file. We can see that it finished. It is pretty small. I'm not going to do anything with this file yet. This is the file that Adobe is going to use, but it won't use it directly. Next, we need the sort of the extension manager to be able to actually use it. So I'm going to go here, and yes please, and I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to be using this version. Alright, so if I go to my downloads, that has finished. Right, and we can see now that the logo for this has changed to match the extension manager. So I can open this, right? It's in my downloads. I don't actually want it there. I want it in my applications folder. So I'm going to drag it to my applications folder. Depending on what administrator settings you have on your machine, you might need approval for that. If it works for you, cool. If not, you might need to talk to whoever can allow you to do that. From there, we're going to take this and we're going to actually drag it onto Extension Manager. Now, I just moved the Extension Manager, so that makes it a little bit tricky, but we do need to drag it on there after we move it, not before we move it. So I'm going to open a new Finder window. Go to my applications, and let's find, there it is, there's the Extension Manager, and now I can drag this onto that. And yes, I do want to open it, even though it's downloaded from the internet. This part might also need authorization. Okay, and then once you see this, then it is working. So we can see here all the different Adobe products that we have installed, and we can see here that this specific extension has been installed for Photoshop. So now that we've done that, we should be able to use the extension in Photoshop. So I'm going to do create new. I'm just showing you a little bit about it, so I don't need to worry about the size right now. And if I go up here to window and I go to extensions, we should see it. Now I'm not seeing it. I installed it after I started Photoshop, and sometimes they don't always update live, so I might need to quit Photoshop and restart it. So let's try doing that. So I'm going to quit Photoshop, and I'm going to reopen Photoshop. Create new. So now if I go up here to Window and I go to Extensions, there we go, now we can see it. So if I click on that, we've got this panel here. It starts it sometimes in sort of a weird spot. That's not very useful for me. So when I actually want to animate things, what I would actually want is I would want my timeline open, right? And then I would probably want this up here with my timeline, right? Let's try that one more time. I want to be able to see both. There we go, like that. Now this is much more efficient. So AnimDessin2 doesn't actually do any new things in Photoshop, but it makes things a lot easier to access and to work with, because now we have all these different buttons that we can quickly use, as opposed to constantly having to like go over here or go somewhere else in the windows or stuff like that. So this is a much more efficient way of accessing a lot of the tools that you'll need for animating in Photoshop. We'll actually start working with it more specifically and in more depth in the next video.